Black Adam is directed by Jaume Collet-Serra. It is, if my count is correct, the 12th movie in the DC Extended Universe DCEU. Actually, more than a year after the Suicide Squad came out, so kind of a notable gap there. Teth Adam / Black Adam, the main character of this film, is portrayed by Dwayne Johnson, who we see early on is awakened in midst of this waylay to get this crown of Sabbac. This crown is a big deal. It gives whoever wears it and owns it a lot of power, and it originates very far back, as we also see in the beginning, taking place like thousands of years BC. So Teth Adam is now alive and active in the present day, and Amanda Waller, who's played by Viola Davis, does not like that. She thinks he's a threat, so she sends members of the Justice Society to capture him and take him to her. This is all going on while there's also a bunch of people trying to get this crown from the archaeologists who woke up Teth and also got the crown at the same time. And now we have this new DC movie, which I gotta be honest, is tough to really justify the existence of, other than to make money, of course. I had a hard time while watching this thinking about what makes it so special and what makes it stand out amongst some of the other DC movies, such as Aquaman, which took the concept of fish out of water literally and kind of explored different types of superhero lore underwater, as well as Shazam, which had a very prominent and important family concept to it. I could never place my finger on what this movie is and what defines it, and another reason why that is because it reminded me of a lot of other things, and it felt redundant of lots of other movies that I've already seen before. We have this crown in the movie that is portrayed as a big deal, as something to not take lightly, which, you know, does feel very similar to The Ring and the Lord of the Rings films. But in addition to that, also the intro to this movie, which is basically just a big blob of exposition to explain all of the backstory to Teth Adam, feels incredibly reminiscent to the way that the Lord of the Rings trilogy started out. The first movie, the first scene, kind of just setting up this world. And it goes without saying, but, you know, the Justice Society, yet another superhero group coming together to fight injustice. I felt like this movie just didn't know what it wanted to be, and instead just borrowed from other things. And there's also the idea of this being remotely tied to Shazam, and Black Adam does have kind of similar origins as Shazam and similar powers. But if you ask me, he doesn't even come close. This movie, to be specific, doesn't come close to being as good as Shazam or as interesting or unique. There are a few things in this movie that I think do work okay. I think mainly coming down to just the potential that it could have had. For example, the city that our main characters live in. We see the people being very involved in the drama that occurs in the midst of the film, protesting, partaking in riots, and I can see potentially an idea that they were trying to explore here with the superheroes crossing the line between being heroes but also almost being vigilantes in a way. But unfortunately they don't really lean into that idea hardly at all and sacrifice that instead for these kind of mediocre action scenes. There is a bond amidst the Justice Society that I think is decently realized. The chemistry there I think is okay. The Rock definitely has the look for Black Adam and for just a comic book character in general. Absolutely, he can sell it with the way he looks, physically speaking, but I gotta say his performance really does not work here. And I mean, this is the main character we're talking about, the title character, and he's just incredibly underwhelming and stale. I mean, it felt like I was watching the Star Wars prequels anytime he acted, and actually anytime a lot of the actors acted, it just felt very stale and emotionless. And I won't say what happens specifically to avoid spoilers, but there is a moment in this film that feels a lot like in Batman v Superman when Lex Luthor creates that monster thing to fight Batman and Superman, and I hated it just as much as I hated that part in that movie. And at this point, I really don't have enough energy to give this thing any more positives or negatives, so I'll just close it out here. I did not care for this movie. I think it's easily one of the worst DCEU movies that they have come out with. and I would give it about a 3.5 out of 10. I can already tell that it's going to be a flop at the box office too, because at the time I'm recording this, it hasn't even made all of its money back yet, and with how many days have passed since it came out, it definitely should have by now. But I want to know what you guys think of this movie. I'm really curious. I know I always say that, but I genuinely am, because I think that there will be some people that do like this movie. It definitely had some potential, and it did have a couple of things that worked for it. I personally just didn't really like it, but I want to know what you guys think. Take care, everyone, and peace out.